All right, page 97, and it says up at the top, model it, equal groups and arrays. We're going to be talking about these first couple of problems. Number one says, to show what the expression 4 times 5 means by using equal groups. Again, we just talked about the difference between expressions and equations. Please notice when we take it back to English language arts for a minute and we see that a word is in bold print. That is a text feature, and the author is wanting you to pay special attention to that word. Again, what makes this an expression is that there is no equal sign. If you see an equal sign, then we're talking about an equation. Root word, of course, being equal, because what is on one side of the equal sign must be on the other side. They must be the same value. All right, so we are talking about this expression 4 times 5, or 4 multiplied by 5. We just talked about that equal grouping a couple of minutes ago. So the first number in putting words to this expression, we're looking at 4 groups of 5. 4 groups of 5. So I want you all to do that now. We're going to draw 4 equal groups. All right, we have 4 groups. Now, the second number is telling us how many are in each group, and that's 5. So let's model that too. Now, friends, do you need to draw little line dashes? No. Could you draw little stars for the marks you're making in your equal groups? Of course you can. You can do whatever it is that helps you. I just do the little dashed lines because it's just easiest for me to model and draw. All right? So it's saying on question A to draw equal groups. Question B is asking, use words to describe your drawing of 4 times 5. So like we talked about yesterday and earlier this morning, what I just modeled was 4 groups of 5. The product, which is the answer to a multiplication problem, 4 times 5 equals 20. 4 times 5 equals 20. Could we do that repeated addition or skip counting that we talked about yesterday to add up what is in these equal groupings? Definitely. Could we say 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 20? We definitely could. We definitely could. With the skip counting, 5, 10, 15, 20. So you might want to envision like a number line, if you will. Okay, now let's take it down to question number 2. So question number 2 is asking us to show the expression 4 times 5 using an array. So what is an array? An array. Again, I would circle that, super important word. That's what the question is asking for. What is an array? An array, it's an arrangement of rows and columns, and it matches the multiplication equation you are trying to solve. Again, it is an arrangement of rows and columns that will match a multiplication equation that you are trying to solve. I'm going to draw one for you right now with this expression. 4 times 5. So again, putting words to it, 4 groups of 5. Now, we're going to talk about rows and columns. So rows go across, columns go down. So these are rows, these are columns. Rows and columns. Rows go across, columns go down. Now, friends, the rows are going to tell how many groups. The rows are going to tell us how many groups, which is the first factor in our expression. So this is telling me I'm going to have 4 rows or 4 groups. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I will have 4 rows. Now, the columns are going to tell me how many are in each group. So the columns are going to tell me how many in each group. I have 5 in each group. Now, friends, I want you to pay special attention to what I'm doing here. This is a very common error that I see when students are first learning the concept of arrays. So I need you to pay very special attention to this next piece. When we are building our columns for how many are in each equal grouping, we must not forget that the first one is already there for us because it's that first number that starts the row. So when we are counting 5, for example, we count this one as 1. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does everyone see that? We count the first one in the array. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have 5 and 5 and 5 and 5. That is your array. So if you were to do your repeated addition or your skip counting, right, you would have 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. And that, of course, would equal 20. But you could also build the multiplication sentence because you have 4 rows multiplied by 5 columns. That is going to realize a product of 20. And of course, the sum and the product match. Okay? So, same as in the first question up above, use words to describe your drawing of 4 times 5. I have 4 rows that represent the number of groups. I have 5 columns that represent the number in each group. The total number is 20. Now, friends, on page 96, questions 3 and 4, it says on question 3 that you can push the tiles in an array together to make a rectangle. Write the multiplication equation the rectangle below shows. Now, friends, take a really close look at this rectangle. This rectangle with all of these squares is an array. Have you seen rectangles like this before? Of course. Now, when we work on grid paper, you've seen grid paper before. That could be used to build an array. This is an array and it's all pushed together. So if I were to do this instead, does everyone see what I'm doing here? The point in me drawing all of these little X's here is to show you that this array that I just very quickly constructed with X's and this rectangle that looks like a grid, all the array is here is just pushed together. This is the exact same thing. It's representing the exact same thing. Okay, so if I were to take a look at my array and I were to build a multiplication equation to represent that, I would clearly see when counting my rows, again, the rows go across. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. So I know my first factor in my multiplication sentence is going to be 3. That means I have 3 equal groups of, well, now I've got to count my columns to answer that question. Multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my multiplication equation is going to show 3 equal groups of 7 that realizes a product of 21. Now, could I count every unit in my array? I could. Could I count 7 plus 7 plus 7 and find a sum of that repeated addition? Yes, I could. My sum and my product will be the same because, again, friends, multiplication is just adding together equal groups. Okay? Number 6 on page 98 reads, use any model to show and find 4 times 7. Write a complete multiplication equation and explain what each number in the equation tells you. Oh, how I love this question. Friends, lots going on here. Lots going on here. So this is where I will always encourage you to close read, to make absolutely sure that you are answering every question that is being asked of you. So, super important. It is saying use any model to show and find 4 times 7. So, could I use equal groupings? I could. Could I use an array? I could. Because it's saying any model. I'm not saying an array. I'm not saying an equal grouping. I'm saying choose your model. All right? So since I know there are a number of things going on here, I think I might need to number my questions so that I get them all, right? So I'm going to call this one, that's number 1. That's going to be my first question. I have to draw a model. And then my second is going to be a multiplication equation. That's another thing I've got to do. So I'm going to say that's number 2. Awesome. And explain what each number in the equation tells you. Explain what each number tells you. That's number 3. So friends, we've got a lot going on here. So let's just one step at a time. One step at a time, my friends. Looking at our new question number 1, use any model. Great. I think I'm going to use equal groups. I think I'm going to use equal groups. So I know that I'm going to have 4 equal groups. 4 equal groups. And I know that I'm going to have 7 in each group. Now again, friends, I use dashes simply for ease. It's just a little bit quicker. Do what makes you happy. Do what works for your brain, all right? So it says to use any model to show and find 4 times 7. So let me add up what I've got here. I have 28. So I'm good with our question number 1. Now I'm going to go to question number 2. I need a multiplication equation. 4 times 7 equals 28. Awesome. So I have addressed our question 1. I have addressed our question 2. Now I need to explain what each number in this equation tells me. So the 4, that is the number of groups. Awesome. That's the number of groups. 7, that is the number in each group. Awesome. And this number is the number in all. Great. And so I have addressed our question number 3, and I can put a little check mark there. So again, I drew the model. I solved using repeated addition. I created the multiplication equation, and I identified what each number in that equation means. So I've done question 1, our question 2, and our question 3. So I can say, yes, I'm done with this question, and I would be able to move on. I'm going to give you just a few minutes to write all that down and make sure you have those good notes.